Hi Scorpio, this is your Vedic Astrology forecast for the month of November 2014. And this forecast applies to you if you have your natal moon or your ascendant in Scorpio in Vedic Astrology. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably follow along with your natal sun sign in Western astrology. So if you have Sun in Scorpio, you're probably used to watching the Western videos for the forecast for Scorpio. And that might not apply to you in this video because I just want to make a distinction that Vedic and Western astrology are different. So if you have Sun in Scorpio in Western astrology, it might be in a different sign in Vedic astrology. And the reason for that is because both systems of astrology use different zodiacs. Western astrology uses the tropical zodiac, and Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac. So if you already know where your planets are in Western astrology, they might fall in a different sign in Vedic astrology. That being said, I want to make something very clear that both systems of astrology are equally valid. Both systems of astrology have wonderful tools of prediction, wonderful tools for determining our psychological profile. One system is not better than the other. So just keep that in mind. And if you would like to follow along with both systems, just try not to confuse the two. If you're watching your Western forecasts, make sure you're watching your natal sun sign in Western. And if you're watching along with, if you're following along my videos and watching your Vedic forecasts, just make sure you're using your Vedic moon sign or ascendant. And if you're not sure where your moon sign or ascendant are in Vedic astrology, you can just go to my website and there you can generate your Vedic birth chart and you can find out where your moon and ascendant are in Vedic astrology. Now, Saturn is going to be entering the sign of Scorpio on November 2nd, and he's going to be here for the next 2.5 years. So what this means for you is that if you have your moon in the sign of Scorpio, not the ascendant, but your moon, if it's in the sign of Scorpio, then you're running your Saturn's Sade Sate during this time. And Sade Sate means 7.5 years. So basically Sade Sate is when Saturn transits the sign before the moon sign, then it transits the moon sign, and then it transits the sign after the moon sign. So this is about a 7.5 year cycle that takes place. And during our Sade Sate, this is a very important period of our lives. Usually Saturn brings a lot of reality checks into our lives. He puts a lot of things into perspective. Things may not be as joyful, or things may look a little bit more somber during these 7.5 years, but more specifically during the time that Saturn is in the sign of the moon. So this is not always an easy time for us. Usually the first Sade Sate marks the death of our grandparents. The second Sade Sate marks the death of our parents. And the third Sade Sate is when we ourselves meet with our departure from this world. So this is it's a little bit different. It's usually in Western astrology, there's a thing called a Saturn return, and that happens when Saturn transits the same position that it was in your natal birth chart. This is a little bit different. This is when Saturn transits our moon sign. And the reason that Indian astrology places a lot of importance on this is because moon is a very sensitive planet. If that's what we call the moon, we call it a planet in astrology. It's not really a planet, but basically it is a very sensitive part of our lives because it signifies our emotions, it signifies our feelings, our thoughts, the most sensitive part of our lives. And moon is particularly sensitive when it is in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house in our natal birth chart. So when it is in one of these positions, that is when moon is even more particularly sensitive. And if moon is in one of these houses in your birth chart and you're running a Sade, this is going to be a very testy time for you. It's going to put a lot of things into perspective. It's going to put some pressure on our emotions, on our sensitivity. It's going to test our resolve. It's going to see how we stand in the test of time. See, Saturn represents the dark half of the year. He represents the time of year in which everything is beginning its deconstruction. The deconstructive process, which is the winter solstice, when all the trees are shedding their leaves, when everything is turning orange and then it turns brown and then it turns gray. That is the time of year that Saturn represents. And he represents that time of that phase in our lives as well. He represents that phase where we're going through a deconstruction. And so during our Saturn Sade, this is a time of deconstruction, a time where we shed our old ideas about life, our old illusions and our old beliefs, but not all beliefs and not all ideas. What Saturn does is he has us shed the ideas that are no longer useful to our soul purpose. He puts certain ideas and certain beliefs under pressure, and he puts them under perspective and makes us reanalyze them to see if they still hold value. And some of those ideas may not hold value in our lives anymore. So that's what Saturn does. We begin to question certain beliefs and we begin a deconstruction phase where we begin shedding those beliefs. But in order to have renewal in our lives, in order to have any type of reconstruction, any type of renovation, any type of regrowth, and especially spiritual regrowth, we have to go through that phase first of letting go, letting things go that are no longer important to us, that no longer serve our purpose. And once we let go of those old ideas, those old that belief system that didn't work for us, that isn't working for us any longer, then begins that renewal, that rebuilding, that re-establishment of new ideas, a new belief system that is now going to be built on a foundation of wisdom, because that's what Saturn does. Saturn gives us certain experiences in our lives, events that help us grow spiritually in wisdom. So now the rebuilding process begins, the process for reestablishing those new ideas, new beliefs that help us grow further, that help us apply these ideas and these beliefs into our new life circumstances. And we can even use that to share that knowledge and that wisdom that we gain with other people. And this is a time, Saturn brings certain moments in our lives that maybe lead to certain emotional suffering, certain emotional depression. But the important thing is what we do with that suffering. That's the important thing. Are we going to use that suffering and turn it into something of value? Or are we going to use that suffering for victimization? And that's something for every one of us to decide. How are we going to use that suffering? And that's something for you to think about. How are you going to use it? turning it into something of value, that is going to lead into something beautiful. Then that means that Saturn's Saresate turned into something of purpose. And so that is something for you to think about during this time, during this Saresate. Just think about the valuable gems that of wisdom that Saturn is trying to teach you and to give you through these circumstances in life. And so that's what Saturn's going to do. He's going to put certain things under pressure. And one of those things has to do with your own self, because it's going to be transiting that first house where your ascendant is, or your moon. It's going to put under pressure things having to do with relationships, because Saturn will be aspecting the 7th house from this position. So it's going to put under pressure and under a new perspective that area of life. Romantic relationships, our partnerships. It's going to put our marriage maybe under pressure, or it's going to have us realize certain things. Were those people really did our partners serve their purpose already? Or what is it that both of you need to learn together as you grow together spiritually? Because your partner may also be going through something similar, through his or her own pressures in life. So this is something that Saturn's going to do. It's going to put certain things under pressure for the both of you. And if you're not in a bonded relationship at this time, then it's going to have you analyze what it is that is important in your life right now. It's going to have you think about what is it that's really important and what it is that you're looking for in regards to relationships. And Saturn is going to be aspecting your 3rd house, which is his own sign, Capricorn. Communication, the way we communicate, our courage, what we're willing to do, the efforts that we're willing to put into our projects or into our circumstances, into life in general. The Saturn aspecting its 3rd house, its own sign, Capricorn, is a good aspect, because Saturn is, since he's aspecting in his own house, the 3rd house is receiving that positive vibe from Saturn, that positive energy. So this is going to be a good time for you to put your efforts into what it is that's important, and to put all your energy into that. And then from Scorpio, Saturn's going to be aspecting your 10th house of work and career. And the work that you do in life, and our karma in life. It's a karma sthana, which means the house of karma. And the reason it's called the house of karma, it's because the 10th house has to do not just with our public careers and not just with our public work, but just with the works that we do in general. So this is a time where Saturn's going to also be putting that into perspective. What works are you doing right now? What karma are you building right now for the future? Because there are certain things in life that we can't change, not right now. There's certain maybe there's certain limits that we have to work under sometimes, certain constraints out of which we can't do anything about right now, maybe because that's something that we've built in the past, through past work, through past karma. But see, the 10th house is, what are you doing now? What are you doing today? What are you planting? What seeds are you planting now that's going to grow in the future? So that's what the 10th house is about. Whatever it is that the work that we're doing now, that's building that karma for the future. So even though there may be that issue of limit, of constraint, of where we can only work under the boundaries of certain limitations in life right now, but that doesn't mean that the future is limited or constrained. What you do now has immense power as to the circumstances and experiences that you and I will face in the future. So thinking about that, thinking about the responsibility that Saturn's going to be placing on you during this time with his aspect on your 10th house, the responsibilities that you're going to be taking on now, and in regards to job and to work as well, to your career. There may be new responsibilities, new projects, new duties, important things to be done in regards to that sector of life. For the first half of the month of November, the Sun and Venus and Mercury are going to be in your 12th house. So there's going to be a lot of energy happening there in your 12th house. Sun's going to be there until the 16th of the month. Venus is going to be there until the 11th. And Mercury is going to be there between the 4th of November and the 24th. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. Venus is in his own sign. Sun, he's not really happiest in the sign of Libra. He shines in the sign that is directly across from Libra, which is Aries. That's where he's exalted. And so the sign exactly opposite Aries, which is Libra, is the least favorite sign of the Sun. So the Sun is being supported in this case, though, by Venus. Venus is giving the Sun the support because Venus is there in his own house and he's being the host. So so Sun is not doing so badly in this case because of Venus. There's going to be throughout the first half of the month, there's going to be a lot of introspection. Because the 12th house has to do with our inner life, with our inner world, with our subconscious mind. The 12th house is a house of renunciation. It is a spiritual house. And so being a spiritual house, one of the things that could be very salient throughout the first half of the month for you are your dreams. And your dreams during this time, it's very good to pay attention to them and to see what messages they're trying to bring to you during this time, because you may have some very active dream life during this first half of the month with all this energy activating your 12th house. And then during the second half of the month, Venus and Sun and Mercury are going to be moving into your first house, and they're going to be joining Saturn there. Now, being in your 12th house, the first half of the month, something to keep in mind is not to maybe spend money on things that you don't really need. Try to pay attention to your finances. It's probably not a good time to do things related to finances. Just keep that in mind, or there may be some unexpected expenses happening during this time. Just keep it in mind, keep that in mind. But if it comes to spending, try not to be indulgent in spending your money maybe on things that you don't really need. And then another thing that the 12th house can also have to do with, it's a house of letting go and letting go of things that we don't need anymore. So with all this energy happening in your 12th house during this time, it's probably a good time to, go through your closet, take things out. You don't need any more clothing that's been sitting there for a long time that maybe you don't wear anymore, or stuff that you just don't use anymore. Declutter your house and get rid of it, donate it, because that's what the 12th house has to do with as well. It has to do with donations and charity. So this might be something good that you could do at this time as well, is donate or perform some charity work to make a very good use of all this 12th house energy that's happening throughout this first half of the month. And then moving forward, they're going to be in your first house. So then suddenly the shift goes from the 12th house, that need for introspection, that need for maybe isolation and focusing on your dreams and focusing on what your subconscious is trying to tell you. That shift is going to move from that to your first house. Now it's time to go out into the world. Now it's time to go public, and now it's time to shine. Now it's time to have, the spotlight's going to be on you now. So you use that knowledge that you gained through your dreams, whatever information they gave you. It's time to apply it now. Time to put it into something useful. And then this is a time to think about your goals, things that you want to, look forward to now. And with that being said, Mars is going to be transiting your second house. He's going to be in Sagittarius. He's going to be there throughout most of the month of November until the 27th of the month. So with Mars being there, he's your ascendant lord. He rules your first house, Scorpio, and he rules your sixth house. So there's going to be an element of Artha, and Artha has to do with our resources, with our wealth, with our material security in life. And so the emphasis is probably going to be on that. And this is especially so during the second half of the month. But, it's going to be there throughout the whole month, because you're going to have, for the first half of the month, planets in your 12th house of letting go of charity and trying not to spend money on things you don't need. And then it's going to be in your second house of income. So Mars being impulsive and aggressive, you might also have the impulse to spend money or to do things of that sort, to squander away. So just keep that in mind. It's something to just think about. Well, guys, this was my forecast for the sign of Scorpio for the month of November 2014. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for additional forecasts, and don't forget to subscribe.